Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm a Google Web Designer Specialist, and I'd like to show you how to use the new Swirl component. In this template, you will find a full-screen expanding creative designed for mobile web. It includes the new Swirl component with parallax scrolling behavior and a Poly 3D model. With this, you can explore every angle of a product by rotating the 3D object in all directions and zooming in and out. I will walk you through the creative. The 3D model rotates on scroll. Starting the creative, you will see a 3D model with transparent background, a logo, and a background image. Interaction state. After interaction, you get into the swirl state, where you can rotate and zoom the 3D model. Expanding state. The creative will expand to full screen. You get a full screen experience of the product with the swipe to rotate button and the CTA button. Be sure that you have the newest GWD installed in order to use this new template. Create a new project, either by selecting Use Template in the user interface you see upon starting GWD, or selecting New from Template from the File menu. Under Templates, select Swirl for Display and Video 360. Under the Layout Swirl header, select Use Layout. Pick the desired size, name the creative, and select the folder you want to work in, and click Create. If you want to know more about the GWD basic features, please check the links in the description on how to build a GWD creative, to customize the Swirl template, and to leverage the Swirl component for a more advanced experience. By default, there is a poly model of a shoe in the template, but you can swap this into your own 3D model. To learn how to create the static part of the banner, please refer to the tutorial on YouTube, available in the description. Now for the 3D model. Be sure to check out the information on how to upload a custom Poly 3D model in order to use it in this template. For more details, see the GWD Swirl component documentation, available in the description. If you want to change the 3D model, you can easily do so. Open the Swirl Settings dialog by double-clicking on the Swirl component. In the Layers panel, select 3D Model. The properties for the model should appear in the Properties panel. In the Properties panel, locate the URL field and enter the Poly Asset ID of your model in this field. You should now have a creative that loads the correct 3D model from Poly. As a note, this menu is also where you'd control the background of the 3D model. By default, a transparent background is used to allow control of background images from GWD. If you'd prefer to use the background configured within Poly, be sure to uncheck the Transparent 3D Model Background checkbox. You can animate the properties of a 3D model on scrolling. In this template, we use the Rotation Yaw property of the 3D model on scrolling. Scroll in the Properties tab to the Property Rotation. The rotation is set for the start to -180 degrees, the middle to 0, and end to 180 degrees. When you preview the creative, you'll see the shoe spinning on scroll. Swirl units have a couple of elements that are mandatory and must stay at specified positions. In the invitation state, there needs to be an Expand button in the bottom left corner of the creative. Next to that, there needs to be a CTA button with an exit somewhere in the creative. In the expanded state, the Close button in the top right corner is mandatory to close the creative. You can customize the look and feel of the template to your likings by swapping the logo and changing the color of the CTA button, for example. Let's check out all the events in this template. The 3D model has a lot of events that you can trigger via code to control. For example, zooming and rotation. I will walk you through all the events in the creative. Let's start with the Expand button. On tapping the Expand button, the creative does a full-screen expand request if the creative hasn't been expanded yet. It adds a class expanded to the page so that all the elements, such as logo and the CTA button, change position and size for the expanded state. I manually set the zoom of the 3D model to 1300 so that it fits nicely inside the expanded state. If the expanded state starts in landscape rotation, we will add the class Landscape and scale down the 3D model a bit by zooming out. On tapping the Close button, the creative does a full-screen collapse request. Next to that, I also report a manual close, since the user has closed the creative himself. On tapping the CTA button or the logo, you go to the landing page. Once the 3D model has been added, interactions can be used to control the model in a variety of ways, such as controlling the zoom or the rotation. For Swirl, there are some specific actions you can trigger to control the 3D scene. All of these actions can be set up through GWD's Events interface. Click the target swirl to access the list of swirl components. You can access different mouse and touch events, swirl and 3D model events. If you click 3D model, you see the possible 3D model events that you can listen to. Click on Interaction Started. On Interaction Started, we will add an action. Click in the Action tab on 3D model. Here you see all the actions that can be triggered. Properties such as zoom, yaw, and changing the pivot point. If you have an animation inside your 3D model, you can access that as well. Play and pause it. There are some more advanced features available that we won't use in this example. Further information can be found in the notes underneath this video. Let's see what we've implemented in the template for 3D model events. On tapping the 3D model, the same happens as for the Expand button. Plus, we report the click as an engagement gesture. When I start interacting with the model, like a zoom or a rotation, I need to add a class interacting with Swirl to hide the gesture button. When you stop interacting with the model and the creative is collapsed, I will add a class End and I remove the class interacting with Swirl. Let's see what other events we have on the page. On Page Activated, I add an Exit Event Listener so that the creative collapses on exiting. I also set the 3D model back to the collapsed zoom. Since this template has been designed for both landscape and portrait, I set a class Landscape to align all elements fitting landscape mode. On Banner Page Rotate Portrait, I remove the class Landscape when turning back to Portrait. On Document Body Collapse Finish, I reset all the properties back to the collapsed state of the creative. As I mentioned earlier, on clicking the CTA button and the logo button, you will go to a landing page. Add an exit, aka call to action, to the creative by adding an event and choosing the action Exit Ad under the section Google Ad. This is required to be able to publish to Display and Video 360. To allow the exit to be specified in Display and Video 360, choose the Exit Ad option and not the Exit Ad Override URL. Also see GWD documentation for adding an exit. Each individual destination URL should have its own exit specified, added via the above process. After finishing building the creative in GWD, publish the creative locally to generate a zip file from GWD and ensure the following. If inline local files, create zip, and minify are checked. Select Publish and GWD will generate DV360 ready published files to the specified file location. When you've finished your project, you can preview this template on DV360 by creating a zip and uploading this to DV360. That does it for Google Web Designer.